Hey, welcome back. All right, so in the last tutorial, we did a little bit of housekeeping, and we added in the isAlive function to be able to immobilize our player once our player dies. In this tutorial, we're going to do a little bit more prep to finish out our health system so that then we can add it into our final HUD. So there's a few more steps we got to do before we get there. We're going to go ahead and go through that. I'm going to do a quick demo to talk about it, kind of talk us through it, so we know what to expect for the next couple of tutorials. All right, so let me go ahead and get my head out of the way and get the background thing out of the way. Okay, so here we are. This is where we left off. We made this function right here 2 tutorials ago to include the isAlive and the decreased kills. We also created this kill button here, basically. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight it and hit C to comment it. And I'm just going to call this kill button. Kind of what it is, so that I can grab it, and I'm going to drag this down here and move it out of the way because it's going to be in our way here in a little bit, in a couple of tutorials in the future. The other thing we did, again, was we added in the isAlive to our various movements so that our player will stop moving. All right, so what are we going to do this time? This time, in this demo here, you can see we have this take damage. And if we take a look at the handle player death, so we've got our damage in and we got it so that our player will die. We haven't done the custom event yet, which is this down here, to call it from here. But what we're going to do to prepare for this next section of handling player deaths is we're going to create a widget. We're going to need this death screen. And it's going to look something like this, okay? We're going to make a death screen so that when our player dies, it pops up and gives our player an option of either quitting the game or restarting. And this will take a little bit of time, probably 10-15 minutes to do. So if I combine it in with this bigger one here, we're going to go way over time. And I think it's just too much to handle all in one tutorial. So we're just going to go ahead and focus on this because this is going to be the biggest thing anyway. And then we'll get the rest of it done in a following tutorial. We'll finish this out and get that set up. And then in the tutorial after that, we will then go into our HUD and get our health bar set up and get all the programming in for that. So those are our next 2 or 3 tutorials. All right, so let's get this out of the way and jump right in here. So like I said, we're going to need to create a HUD. Okay, we've already created, or not a HUD, another widget. We already have a HUD, this one right here. So if we go down into our content drawer, and in our content drawer, we're going to find our UI folder, and in our UI folder we're going to right click, go to user interface, so UI user interface, and we're going to find our widget blueprint. We're going to click on that. We're going to use the one that pops up, user widget right here. Just click on it and it'll create a new one, WBP for widget blueprint underscore, and we're just going to call this Death Screen. All right, something like that. Now we're going to double click on it and open it up. And again, just like last time, it opens up completely blank. We do not have a canvas or anything in here. So the first thing we need to do, since we're going to need a canvas, is find it. We're going to type in canvas up here at the top, and the canvas panel will pop in. I'm going to drag it in down here and drop it so that it kind of centers it here in our screen. You may have to zoom in or zoom out. If yours is not exactly like mine, that's fine. But you'll see the outline is right here. And if we hover inside of it, it gives us this blue line around it. Okay, so we've got that first piece done. The next thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to put a background on it, so a background color. And the way we're going to do that is by typing in image, or if you look here in the comments section, image is right here. So you can type in image, or you can just find it this way. We're going to click and drag and drop it onto our canvas panel so it becomes a child of our canvas panel. And right here in the corner, that's our little image, and it's anchored here in the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to drag it all the way across. It's this nice big white screen right now. Just kind of put it so that it's right at the edge, just like that. Okay? And it should be 1920 by 1080, I believe. If you wanted to type it in, make sure it's exactly right. It's 1920 by 1080 for size X and size Y because that's the size that this screen is set up for. Okay. And then the next thing we're going to do is right up here where it says anchor. See, our anchor right now is up here on the left. We're going to make it so that this anchor is actually on all four corners. So here we go. You can see the little arrows on all four corners. Now, what you could do if you had gone into Photoshop or you found an image that you really like, you could set this up so that it's an actual image instead of using a color background like we're doing right now. And you can tie those in inside of here, over here on the details section. But we're going to just call this background color. So up here where it says image 173, I'm going to type in background color and just rename it so it's background color. And then down here where it says color and opacity, I'm going to click on this and I am going to make it red so it kind of stands out to the player. They see something happening. And I'm going to say OK. And then for the opacity part of it, so we have our RGB. This is what gives us our color. And then we have opacity. This is what gives it the visibility. So we want the visibility to be see-through. And the one I use in my demo, I've set it at 0.2. So we can put it at 0.2 where you can click and drag until you get the look you want. And you can see that now it's a little bit transparent. You can still see the squares behind it, but the red is definitely right there, right in front of your face, and you're not going to miss that. Okay, so we've got part of it done. Let's go ahead and compile and save it before we move on. We don't want to lose any of our work that we've done. And Unreal Engine likes to crash every once in a while, so just make sure you save things. Okay, now the next thing is we're going to need some text in here. We've done this before in our HUD, right? So up here, we're going to type in text, and we're just going to use the regular text box. I'm going to click and drag and drop it right here on my canvas panel. Okay, it can't go on my background color. It needs to go on my canvas panel. It's right up here in the back. I am going to change I'm going to select it for one and change the anchor to the center. So I know where the center of the thing is. And I haven't really discussed what anchors do, but what they do is they anchor it so that your text generally, or your text images or whatever you're using on your canvas, generally stays anchored to that location, so that as the screen size changes, like when we set this, we said it was a 1080 by 1920 by 1080, right? And if the screen changes, smaller, bigger, whatever, the text that we put in here, the buttons, all the things we put in our canvas will generally stay anchored into that position that we put them in wherever they are here on our canvas. So that's the purpose of an anchor. I'm going to grab this text box and drag it down here in the center, kind of right above this. It doesn't have to be right in the middle, but I'm going to kind of put it right here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because this is going to be, and I'll resize this in a second, but I just kind of get a feel for where it's going to go. And you can see this is my center point. I have it kind of over there. And you can use the arrow key on your keyboard to move it back and forth, up and down. Okay, so now I have that. I'm going to change it from the text block here, and I am just going to say, sadly, comma, you died. Something like that. So now we have that here. I'm going to now also want to center it. So right down here under justification, I'm going to center it there. I'm going to change my font from Roboto to the one I've been using for the rest of my screen. So this Ninja Penguin is what I used. And you can see it made it really, really small. And what I'm going to do now is change it to my font size that I used in my demo right here. I'm going to make it 214, kind of make it bigger. And it kind of centered it as it is. I think I'm okay with that. And again, this box is just sort of a placeholder. It doesn't really do much. You see I can kind of move it around. It doesn't do anything anyway. So really, I just wanted it centered in the text this direction. And that'll work. We've got this pretty much set up the way I want it. That's it for that. We can always change the font color, and you can play around with the font sizes and things like that. And there's even some of these things in here. You can change your letter spacing if you wanted the letters to be further apart, right? You can also play around with a skew amount, so you can skew the lettering if you wanted to give it a different look. All right. So that's pretty much that. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to add some functionality. Remember in the demo, we had two buttons, a quit game and a restart game. We're going to go ahead and add those in now. Up here where it says text, I'm going to just X that out of there. And we have this button that's under common, or you can type in button and it'll pull up. I am going to grab it and I'm going to drag and I'm going to drop it. Actually, I'm just going to drop it here in the screen, kind of where I want it to go. And it should become a child of the canvas panel, and it did. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, something like that. I'm going to duplicate this here in a minute once I get it kind of set up so that both the buttons are the same size. The biggest thing is that the quit game text is longer than the restart. So I want to make sure that I use the quit game first to get this kind of set up. And this button, it says button right now, button 202 up here. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say quit, and we'll rename it to quit button, and you have it right there. And now I'm also going to want a text. So again, common right up here, here's text. We can also type it in. I'm going to click and drag and drop this text right on top of the quit button. All right, so now it's kind of centered right there. What I am going to do is select the text block. There we go. And we're going to go in here where it says text block, and we're going to just type in quit game. And you can see it's right there. Now, one other thing I realized I forgot to do, this gray background and the white just don't really work for me. You can make these any colors you want. You can put these buttons anywhere you want. You can even have it say anything you want up here. I am just doing a demonstration of what I did, showing you how it works, and you can run with it in any way you want and be as creative as you want with this. So, but what I'm going to do for this button is I'm going to select this quit button again, go over here to color and opacity, background color, and I'm going to change it to black so it kind of contrasts against the white a lot better. And now with the quit game, I'm going to select that text, go to Roboto, change it to my font, and I'm going to upscale this. I believe I had it at 88. All right, and kind of see how it kind of jumped out of there. And now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to justify. I'm going to go to justification. I'm going to center it, and it's going to, did it change my font? Nope, it left it alone. Good. All right, so now it's kind of in there. The button may not be quite big enough yet. Probably want to make the button just a little bit longer, but let's get things kind of lined up first, and we'll figure out the button in a minute. The next thing I'm going to want to do is go ahead and go down here. Make sure I find it. Here we go. Down here, under Render Transform, right underneath it is one called Transform. And actually, you have to hit Render Transform first. Hit that down. You'll get the Transform button. And then if I hit the arrow down, the translation is the top one. And this is your X and your Y. I want to move this button up a little bit so that the text up a little bit in the button. So I'm going to take the Y. I'm going to click in there. And I'm going to go in the negative direction because I need to go up. And again, the box isn't really lined up very well. I could select the text box, kind of play around with the text and try to get it to work a little bit better, but it's not really that important. What's important is the button and the scale of the button and getting the text lined up inside my button. So now I'm going to select the button and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. We'll make it a little bit wider. And now when I did that, you can see that the text is sort of not where I want it to be. So I'm going to go back into my translation and I'm going to move it down just a little bit. So go in the positive direction to move it down. And that sort of gets it centered the way I want it. Not too bad. All right, so like I said, we're going to duplicate this button. So I'm going to go back to the quit button. I'm going to select it. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it. And see, it made a quit one and then a quit game in the middle of it. And it should drop it right up there. I'm going to go in and we're going to do some housekeeping on this first so that I know which one's which. So right here where it says quit one, I'm going to select that and type in restart and rename it to restart. And then for the text, I'm going to select the text and right up here where it says quit game, I'm going to change that to restart. Now I'm going to select the restart button itself. And actually, let's select the quit button first. So I'm going to select the quit button. And let's take a look to see where everything's lined up. Okay, it's in the X position right here at 727. And the Y position is 725. So I'm going to make this an even 725. Not going to really change it much because all I'm doing is rounding it. What I wanted to do is make sure that I get the Y correct for this one. So I'm going to click and drag it, put it down here, and then for the Y position here, I'm going to change that to 725 to match this one. So now they're perfectly lined up in the Y direction. So they're even. You don't have to do that. It's something I wanted to do, but again, that's how you can do it. You can just see where one thing is and change the position of the other. All right, so we've got both our buttons created. Let's go ahead and now give them some functionality. When we click on the quit button here, we're going to select the quit, the upper level one, the button itself. Up here at the very top, see where it says is variable? We want to make sure that this is a variable, so we're going to click it there and make it a variable. What that does is now it adds this down here. So if I click on restart and I scroll to the bottom, see it's not here. There's no functionality that we can add to it. But when I click on restart and I hit is variable, because we need this to be is variable too, now you can see that under events, it gives us some choices. All right, so let's go back to quit button real quick for the quit button. And on click, we're going to hit the little plus button. And that's going to automatically move us over to the graph. So we were on the designer, now we're in the graph, and it says on clicked quit. So we know that this is the quit button, right? And this is going to be a pretty easy one to set up because really there's just one thing. Once we click the button, we want the game to quit, correct? So we're going to drag off of it and we're going to type in quit, and our choices should come up and it should be quit game. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to just highlight both of those, hit C, and we're just going to call it what it is, quit game. That one's done. Now let's go back to the designer. So click up here on the designer, select the restart button because this one's going to be a little bit more complicated. We're going to come down here and again, on clicked, we're going to hit the plus button and that'll pop up for us. Again, if you didn't have the plus button down here, make sure that you've selected is variable up here so that you have this, okay? Now with the restart, there's going to be some things that we're going to have to do, okay? We're going to set it up so that we have a little bit of a camera fade, so it's not a sharp, harsh kind of transition from well, you were playing the game, you're dead, and now all of a sudden it started again. We want a little bit of a kind of a transition, and that's going to be called, we're going to do that through using a camera fade. We're also going to have to give the opportunity for the player to interact with the buttons, right? So we're going to have to make it so that the mouse appears and is able to, the player is able to move the mouse around and select the button that they want. So we're going to do both of those things here on this on clicked for restart. So the first thing we need to do, we're going to right click and we're going to set this camera fade up. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to get player, and we want to get the player camera manager. So we can see we have a bunch of choices here. We want this one right here, get player camera manager. And we need this one because we could drag off of here and try to find the start camera fade. But again, because it's, when we do this, we have this context sensitive checked. It may not always show up when we don't select other, when we select other things where we right click because it doesn't know what we want to do. So it's trying to guess. If we select the camera manager, we do it from here, it's going to know. So we're going to do start camera fade. See how few choices we have because we're again selecting from the camera. We're going to start the camera fade. We connect this up. We're going to go from alpha of 0, 0, so transparent, and we're going to make it so that it's solid. And we're going to change it to alpha 1 to be solid. So 0, transparent, 1 is solid. And how long do we want it to take to do this? We're going to make it happen over 2 seconds. I'm going to leave the color default at black. If you wanted to have a different color for your transition, you can play around with that and get what you want for that. And then we're not going to do anything with audio, but we are going to go ahead and hold when we're finished. So we're going to check that to be true. So this is a Boolean, true or false. We put a check mark in it, makes it true. Now the next thing we want to do is we're going to have a little bit of a delay. And I'm going to set this for 1 second. All right. Good so far. We got a camera fade, so when we get ready to click this button, it's going to run this camera fade, and then we're going to remove the mouse cursor. So a second ago when I was talking about setting this up, what we're actually doing is once we click the button, we want the mouse cursor to go away. When we go to set this up in the player to make it so that once you die, the death screen comes up, what we're going to do is we're going to do the opposite. We're going to set it up so that the player now gets mouse control back. Once we click on restart, we want to take away the mouse control from the player and make that disappear. So this is going to take it away. We haven't given it to them yet, but we're going to take it away first here. And then when we go set everything up in the player blueprint for this, we'll give them the ability to control the mouse, and we'll talk through that. All right, so the first thing we need to do is, if we're going to restart, we want to know what we're restarting. So we want to restart the level that we're on. We can do that by getting first the level name. We need to know what level we're on, right? Get current level name. Right here, get current level name for the game. And that's going to go out and say, hey, where are we? And then the next thing we want to do is we want to open that level by name. Open level by name, right here, for game. Well, what level? It's this one right here. We're going to return the value of the name, and we're going to give that name right in here to the open the level. So get the name. This is the name. We want to open that one, and we're going to pass that name here. Now, because we have mouse control, we need to take the mouse control away. In order to do that, we have to get the player controller. So we're going to right click. If my mouse is not cooperating, there we go. Get player controller. So we want to get the player controller. We're going to set input mode. Now, we're only going to set the game only mode. So we want to set input mode game only. We're not doing a user interface. We're just setting the player controller. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to pull off of here again, and we're going to type in show mouse cursor. So set show mouse cursor right there. And we're going to leave this unchecked. So we want it to be false. So if the mouse cursor is currently available, we want it to take it away. So we're going to hide it. So by making this boolean false. Okay. And that should set that up. We're going to compile it and save it. And we're going to go ahead and highlight all this, hit C, and we're going to call this restart game. And compile it and save it. And that is going to be it for this tutorial. Again, we just kind of wanted to get some things set up for what we're going to do in our next tutorial. I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter so they don't get too ridiculously long. This one is currently about 20 minutes or so, 24 minutes. So we're going to stop here, and we'll pick up with taking this and making all of the functionality happen inside the player blueprint in the next tutorial. Again, if you like what you saw, please like my video. Thanks for playing, and I will see you next time. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.